We are back. Yeah, thank God Restream is now working. Yesterday with the Resi one, Restream was kaput because of the AWS outage.
Well, Restream and half of the internet. What, I mean, how is everything just reliant on? It's like
Yeah, there's something fishy about that.
something very suspicious is afoot, I think, with AWS. But no worries, we're back today. We're on the main platform. We are back. Revenue Search, one of the top podcasts.
The same joke every episode.
It gets funnier. Honestly, by season 4, you'll be laughing at that. And it'll be in the highlight reel. And we'll get rid of the plastic tree joke and we'll put this one in. Anyway, what we got in the digital green room today? What we're talking about?
We have a treat. So the revenue search episode that I send the URL out to the most is the Hippius one that Mog recently did, where he had some lovely slides, went through, basically redesigned alphanomics for him, and like as we know, deriving value back to the alpha holder is a wide spectrum. You have everything from buyback and burns, or buyback and have some sort of treasury fund of some sort, to the fancy alphanomics that Hippius now has. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how video will do a similar-ish alphanomics, bearing in mind they don't have their own separate chain like Hippius does. So shall we drag them out of the...
Yeah. So we've got Gareth and Mog, and we're hoping for slides. That's what we're hoping for. We're secretly hoping for slides. Then we can just watch it like we're watching telly, and we can be watching our own show.
Our slides got lost in an AWS data feed. But someone messaged me the other day saying their son, or yesterday, son couldn't do his homework because the online system was powered by AWS. Although we should know the Tau stats and the little plug hit or Hippius neither went down thanks to AWS.
Hey,
I know.
exactly.
There you go.
Nice. So you do those.
I do have slides, yeah. Am I watching on my screen?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Do it. We should have tested this in beforehand. Can you press the share?
Yeah, I think we're in.
I know it's not like we don't cleverly arrange a few minutes ahead of time in order to do a tech test, but instead we would just shoot in the breeze.
That's pretty professional. He knows.
Yeah, for the first time ever it worked. So can you see the slides, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I thought what we'd do is start from the beginning, give a little kind of background on who we are, what we're doing for people that might not know us, a little bit about the tech we're using, and obviously the market that we're working in. So what is video? Who are we? What do we do? So we are video processing subnet. We essentially work in video upscaling and video compression. So video upscaling is where you take a low resolution file, say an SD file, and you upscale it to a higher resolution, HD or 4K. Traditional upscaling would use like a mathematical algorithm where you just blow up the pixels, which would make a very blocky picture and not really nice for the human eye. So what we do is we use, train neural networks to predict what's going to happen in the picture, to basically fill in the gaps to make a smooth, sharp picture, so the viewer has a much better experience. And then video compression is essentially the opposite, where we take a very high resolution video and we compress it down to much lower resolutions, file size and bit rate, but whilst maintaining like a high quality picture. So the same again with traditional compression methods, you get really bad blocking and artifacts, but with the technology that we're using, we can make a really good quality picture at very, very small bit rate. So yeah, that's kind of us in a very small nutshell.
I'm going to interrupt you on that, Sean. I said I would only interrupt you from time to time. Because actually, if you can go back or you can stay on that. When we say who are video, you forget a little bit that you didn't introduce yourself. And to obviously, a fair few people know who I am, and people may not know who you are. And I think it's important because I think that so much of what we're doing now in Subnets is about building companies. And companies are the people that run them and the people that head them. And people will notice that I will try and keep quiet for most of this one because video is also very much you. So who is Gareth Howells? from our perspective over at Talstats and what we do, Gareth is someone that I've known for, he predates my Bittensor life, as someone that works incredibly hard in the industry in which he was present, which was then video production, video editing, and I knew nothing about Bittensor. And as a sign of the type of people that we want to get involved in heading companies, I vaguely remember mentioning to Gareth something about Bittensor, or he must have asked what I was up to, only for him to come back 6 or 8 months later. And of all at that time when I was getting a lot of these, a subnet idea, he said, "Oh, can I have a word with you?" And I did not expect it to be about Bittensor or subnets. And then presented me what is to this day the most complete subnet proposal idea from someone who is not a Python programmer, who is not a Rust programmer, who doesn't have a programming background, but has a business building background and expertise in his industry. And for me, it was an absolute no-brainer to back one of the hardest working people that I know. And I think that kind of is a part of the introduction as to who Video is. And now, as we talk later about our team, heading up what is a really, really bright, strong team. That was it. You can carry on now.
Thank you for your kind words. Yeah. So I do have a very long history in working in video, post-production, editing, asset management, working for some big companies, Canal Plus, Sony, Pokemon, worked with MTV back in the day. There's probably not a broadcaster in the UK and most of Europe that I haven't worked with. And all the VOD platforms, Netflix, Disney, Hulu, and some of the smaller ones as well. So yeah, so that's a bit about me. So from there, I was working in the market and I was looking for solutions for upscaling and more importantly, compression actually. And I just couldn't find anyone with a decent solution for that. Certainly not an affordable one and a scalable one. There are some things out there, but they weren't really doing what we needed them to. So this is how Video was born. So we offer both a consumer and a B2B product. So I'll show you a little bit later on our consumer product on the website, which is now live, and you can have a play around with that. So that's upscaling and video compression. And then for, big enterprise clients, we'd be working directly with them, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So essentially what we can do is we can make a video file perceptually 80% smaller, but really high quality picture. So the quality of experience for the consumer is really what VOD platforms and broadcasters care about. They get a really high quality experience, but much lower bit rate, meaning less bandwidth costs, less storage costs, and easier streaming. We make tools that work on mobile networks first. I've spoken a lot about my experience in Africa and emerging markets in general. They have very different problems than we do here, where they're mobile first technology. They have really poor infrastructure, so they need lower quality, lower size, file size, but at better quality. So they've got bandwidth problems, they have technology issues, they've got hardware issues as well. So ways we can create revenue would be to upscale old content libraries. And then of course we can use our compression on content libraries to make them 50 to 80% smaller, which is a big solution for storage for any content holder with a big library.
We often wonder about upscaling. The next time you're watching a Netflix documentary, note the amount of old footage that's in there. And we're all watching it on our beautiful 4K, 8K, wonderful high-res TVs, wondering that we're watching someone's high 8, Super 8 camcorder recordings from the 80s, 90s, at the most, if not 50s, 60s, 70s. If anyone was watching the Charlie Sheen documentary on Netflix, the amount of old footage in there, and I was looking at it thinking, wow, this is like really, really old stuff that I'm watching at a very nice, smooth feel. And this is the unthought of market of upscaling, which is something that I keep saying I can't unsee it now. Everything's up.
What? So, like, we're trying to show our kids older movies. Like we watched E.T. as a family the other day, and then some other things like Short Circuit, and it looks so crap on our TV. So with this upscaling help with that, make it look more modern.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, so we can essentially take that old footage, put it through our upscalers, and make it look like it was shot today in 4K.
It won't make the storyline and special effects and anything else going on in something like Short Circuit any more up to date. But
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but the picture quality. So as Smog says, it kind of unlocks a whole world of content that was shot before the 2000s. You know, there's so much direct to video stuff. There's so many content libraries out there which have just got fully SD content. So that's something, you know, we could look at. And not only can we do that, we can upscale it and then we can compress it. So we upscale it to make it 4K. It's a big file. It's much better quality. Then we compress it down so they can have a smaller file, you know, and all of the benefits that we just spoke about.
Double bubble. Nice.
Yeah. So, wrong way. So just to give you a size of the market that we're working in, 85% of the content traffic on the internet is video based. So it's, you know, it's an enormous number. But if you actually think about day-to-day lives, how much video is, you know, present in our lives, everywhere we look, everything we look at, everything on X, YouTube, all of this stuff is video-based content. So, you know, there's a lot of it out there, and there's a lot of processing that needs to be done. So that brings us on to the addressable market. So obviously, these figures are huge, and you know, if we take the cloud storage CTM providers, 200 billion a year market, but that, you know, that doesn't mean that we can solve every problem for every person in that market. But just to give you an idea of CDN cloud storage costs, so Netflix AWS bill in 2019 was 120 million. They haven't released any figures since then, but obviously that's going to be climbing and climbing with bigger files, 4K, 8K, and more content added to the platform. So that's just, you know, one user of that kind of market. So just to give you an idea of, you know, what we're working with.
we could save
video
them
streaming.
Hippius.
Sorry, say again?
We could save them a fortune on Hippius.
Yeah. Well, maybe they need
Let me know if you've got a contact.
So video streaming platforms, obviously this is one of our bigger markets that we're going after. Disney spent 17.75 billion on their infrastructure last year. Of course, we're not going for every element of their infrastructure there, but that's for all of their streaming platforms. You know, that would be storage, that would be streaming, and all of the technology that goes in there. But so if we can, you know, solve a couple of problems for them, then that's still quite a big money pot to pull out of. Security and surveillance is another one where there's just, you know, hours and hours and hours of footage recorded every day. It has to be kept for compliance purposes. It's got to be stored somewhere. It needs to be able to, people need to be able to see it for, you know, for legal purposes. Medical and industrial is the same. You have to keep some of their videos for up to 30 years for compliance purposes. So all of this needs to be stored somewhere. And, you know, if we can save 50 to 80% storage costs in any of these industries, then, you know, we're going to be on to a winner. We're going to be helping people. Education, video. My son's school does 50% of their videos now online. So they're using like educational tools to watch. And then autonomous vehicles is something that we've been exploring recently. Every trip an autonomous vehicle makes has to be recorded and it has to be kept somewhere. So legally, they can go back and look at it. So all of these, you know, that initially we were thinking much more to be in the entertainment space, but now we're realizing that there's a lot more industries that we can help with and people that need our products. So, as we are on the revenue search, I thought we could talk about revenue, but I think before we do that, I want to give you a quick demo of our consumer products. So we made our video compression live yesterday, actually. So just going to give you a live demo while we're here, so we can see it working and you can see what we mean.
Amazing.
Good luck.
What we can see is this slide.
I was going to say you might have to switch screens from the slide apps to the browser app.
Yeah, I knew there'd be a technical hitch somewhere. Okay.
I'm so excited. I love a live demo.
We love a live demo. Oh,
No pressure.
Children, animals, and live demos. Those are the.
Share entire screen or something.
Yeah, only again. Here.
no one should ever do that. There you go.
Okay, so this is our website. So if we scroll down, we can see a little video upscaling demo here. And then we're going to move down to video compression. So, we're going to add a video here. Use the test file that I created earlier. So as you can see, this is now uploading. It's going to take.
Eaten all of Gareth Fandler.
You're going to ruin his bandwidth.
Maybe we should go back.
Gareth is about to turn into like a Minecraft character with the... Yeah, so typically how long does it take to upload a let's say a 1 gig video?
Depends on the size of your I was gonna say the size of your video and your bandwidth being.
I mean to compress that.
There you go. Compression speed versus file size. At the moment, I think we have a 5-minute limit on it. I did a 200 meg video as my test video, which annoyed them a little bit because it was more than I think people thought you would do. And it actually the compression part didn't take very long. I think it took longer to upload than it did.
Yes, the upload takes a little bit longer. So as you can see, it's still uploading. So let's chat amongst ourselves while we're doing that.
Well, it's quite interesting because I sat there. I was very good. I sat there very silently through the addressable markets. I have to admit, and I said it to Gareth, not to admit to you, I am not a fan of people that come on and present addressable markets as if it's like, here's $100 billion market, so associate that number with us. But actually, I think the most important thing to come out of there is what you said at the end, Gareth, which is, initially we were very focused on entertainment. And then you realize that video processing and storage is actually, it's a problem for smaller businesses, because it's all very well to talk about the big providers, talk about Netflix and say, well, they're spending 120 million on their AWS bill. But I'm pretty sure when we knock on their door and go, hi, it's Mark and Gareth from Video. Can we talk to you about providing all of your compression? They'll say, sorry, guys, we're not interested. However, if you go to a startup security company, who are currently wrestling with their offsetting the costs of storage as a genuine hurdle to profitability, suddenly you start to see the smaller players in this market. And what you'll see as we talk through this, and one of the things that I admire probably in Gareth's team more than any other team that I see, is their ability to understand and address what a business really needs to do in order to acquire customers. I would say there's a 50-50 within Bittensor. Can I keep going, Gareth, or do you want to stop?
No, keep going.
Holy shit.
I was going to say, holy shit. Is that 102 megabytes down to 4.75?
Yeah, that's right.
And that still looks like the same squirrel.
Yes.
No quality loss.
There will be a tiny bit of quality loss, but very, very small. So so that's this video on the right is 95% smaller than the video on the left.
So Gareth, as you were going through that, Mog was talking, but I noticed that there were 3 options for compression. Why the 3 options? What are the 3 different options?
So this basically small, medium, and high. So that this is the highest possible compression you can do.
Hyper. That's what you had it down as.
Yeah, hyper. Yeah, exactly. Hyper, medium, and low, I think it is. So so this is the highest compression. We use a good quality file here, so it gives us a lot more data to work with. So it's a much better end result. So that's why when we use hyper, we can get this 95% file size.
What file size outputs would we have expected with the small and medium size compression?
They small for this will probably be around 25, medium probably around 50 or 60.
% saving.
Yeah, maybe a little higher because it's also very dependent on the quality of the input. So if you use already quite a compressed file, then you're not going to get such good results. So this is why compression, we always try and find the true source file as high as possible. 4K, 8K file is going to give you amazing compression down the line. If you've got something that's already been compressed or, you know, or filmed on your phone or something like that, then we're not going to see high compression. So when we're working with an enterprise client, for instance, a VOD platform, we're going to be working with their master catalog. So we're going to be working with 4K, 8K files so we can achieve this type of compression for them.
Yeah, but you're recognizing there that not everybody's going to want the hyper compression, so there are two other options for them. If they've got poorer quality input, then they can still get a smaller file.
Yeah.
But you're not gonna.
And even it's, for instance, if it's a high quality input and they're really, really worried, like there will be some degradation on this, but not huge. But if you really want just, take 20% off the file size, but keep it probably the same absolutely perfect picture, then you could use low for that as well. So.
And the reality is a lot of streaming platforms will actually want to do one of each. Give me a small, give me a medium, and give me a hyper. And I will serve those up adaptively depending on the bandwidth of my user, working out how many megabytes they can stream per second.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe even more than 3. Like for enterprise clients, they'll have what we call an encoding ladder. That's basically the standard how they would do the compression on their files, so they can keep that on their CDN, so they can serve their end users, like Mog said. So.
Yeah. Well, we spoke about this about 3 months ago when we promised that compression would be coming, and worth noting, this has just gone live, the public compression, and this is the consumer-facing side of it. And I don't know, do you have an upscaling demo?
I don't. I haven't got one for.
Someone bring out an old video. It works just as nicely, and shows what are essentially the consumer provability options of what's going on. And that's, I think, it leads nicely back to your slide, Gareth, if you wanted to go back to your slide.
Yeah, no, I'm just, yeah.
Gareth, you need to rename that test file if you're going to do this demonstration again. I'd like to see that renamed nuts compression demo.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so what about revenue? So so as you've just seen, we have a consumer product on the website. This is very early doors. It's still in beta. It's still free for users. We're using that while we're debugging. We're making sure that it works perfectly. Obviously, the miners, this is new to them, serving organic jobs through the front end. So we need to make sure that everything's working before we can kind of build out that product and start charging. So the consumers that will be using that would be video editors, content creators, or, as Smog said, anyone who's got an old film that they want to upgrade. Currently, there's time limited and a number of inputs an hour. But if you join one of our tiers, then you're going to have much more functionality, and you can do as many minutes as you want as long as you pay for it. So that's that. And then on the other side, we've got, of course, enterprise clients who we've just been talking about, who we're hoping we're going to be these big content holders, whatever sector they're in. They're going to have tens of thousands of minutes of content that either needs upscaling and compressing or just compressing. And these are the clients we hope to, have ongoing working relationships with. If you're a VOD platform, you don't just come to us for a one-off job. We servicing your content as and when it comes in, and on rolling contracts.
I'm going to cut in here. Here we have some figures on the other side of the scale, which I'm much more of a fan of. I like attainable benchmarks. And so if you look at the Topaz Labs, which is probably the clearest competitor to the consumer side of things, a platform online where you can go on and pay to either compress or upscale your videos, and they are netting 8.3 million in revenue in 2024. I would be very pleased to come on a revenue search with you in 6 months' time or 8 months' time or a year's time and say we have surpassed those competitors, we've doubled, we don't have. But I like metrics like that, rather than the 200 billion addressable market, because it gives a very attainable point to aim for, and this is just on the consumer side. And I think sometimes within Bittensor, especially when we are valuing on growing, exponentially growing markets, sometimes we lose track on a little bit of the realistic attainable goals for a business. And so the consumer side, biggest competitor, that's our first target. That's what we're going after. That's what we're shooting for. You can scale that down to monthly if you want to, or what's 8.3 million to 600K a month in revenue, gives you a very attainable goal to go after. We're going to switch and talk to enterprise, but we look at some of the main enterprise clients at the moment. 10.5 million revenue 2024. Vision, harder to say than video. And again, we can combine those, but it gives us very, very clear goals to go for in terms of the type of value that we're trying to attract to the subnet or to the business itself. Back to you on enterprise, yeah.
Yeah. So, and just, to add on enterprise clients, we're talking to a lot of big content holders and who are very interested in what we're doing. I was hoping to be able to announce some stuff today, but we're still in talks and we haven't got anything signed, so I can't do that. But I can just say that we've got, a potential contract for 2 petabytes of content with a big distributor in Africa who is like our perfect client. So we're very excited about that, but unfortunately, I've got to wait till we can talk about that properly.
And I mean, this example, and this is another thing. Again, I will be very tight-lipped on this, but it reminded me of early days of being a web developer, where you go up to someone and say, "Hey, I'll build your site for free, and then if you like it, maybe you'll want to use me for future work or do something like that." And we're literally there. I mean, Gareth is knocking on doors saying, "Hey, would you like us to upscale all of your archive footage to show you how good we are? And then let's see if you want to use us and if you like us." Obviously not on his neighbor's door. These were on big known companies' doors. But this is where we are. We're knocking on doors, and we have now the product ready to confidently knock on those doors.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we just need to prove the technology and show what we can do. And then I think, a couple of case studies behind our belt and people, really.
There's the next slide show. Some of those doors have issues. Over to you, Gareth.
Okay, so this is kind of why we're here, to talk about the new Elite Miners Enterprise track. So this is something we posted about on X, and that's when you guys got in touch and said, why don't you come and talk about this? So I'll give you a kind of graphical representation of what we're doing. So subnet is always going to remain the subnet. This is where we have our, product is being developed and innovated upon by the amazing miners on our subnet. We're servicing all of our consumer jobs through there. The website runs through there. And of course, this is where we're kind of the breeding ground for the talent for our business, essentially, not just the subnet, for video as a business. So what we are proposing is an enterprise track for clients who may be a little bit more hesitant to work with a AI, crypto, decentralized company, which a lot of these bigger content holders are, because they have a lot of problems around privacy and, licensing. So why we're doing this is exactly for that reason. It opens up a large enterprise market for us that we may not be able to move into if we were just to stick solely to working and processing all of our jobs through the subnet. There's clients that are going to require a much higher level of security. They're going to want us to have NDAs. They're going to want to know who we are. They're going to want to look at our security, our processing, and how everything works. So each individual client will have different needs, but essentially we're going to be working outside of the subnet on a lot of these enterprise jobs.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Because you came to me with a problem, and when I think if we can even actually go back to the previous slide for a second before we get people excited with partnerships and look at this process. And the thing that the video always did from the very outset was build very, very strong relationships with the miners. There were a couple of teams approaching directly saying, "Hey, look, we are building um, businesses behind this." And interestingly, those businesses are competing heavily because one of the initial ones I spoke to recently, and they said, "Oh no, we're not doing it anymore. We couldn't compete. We've moved on." A much more Bittensor orientated, who understood very much the Bittensor side of things. And now one of the most recent, and I will be respectful to the privacy, but this is a company, and they actually wanted to speak to us because they were very concerned about how they dealt with alpha, how they dealt with the financial crypto side of things. Because they started this conversation by saying, "We're not a crypto native company. We have no experience in this. We upscale. That's what we do. And now we're moving on to compression, etc. But we are very video native in what we do." So building these relationships with the miners, or essentially I like to call them the suppliers, the business suppliers, trusted suppliers, is really important. And I started to look at this problem and say, well, I remember seeing this in the early days of Subnet 19. I know other subnets have experienced this. And if you work with your miners, the good ones, you really, really can grow because they are incredibly talented in performing the tasks that you want. They give incredible feedback and they're very, very present because, of course, their bread and butter depend on it. And they're willing to prove themselves. And this is, of course, what we looked at with Hippius Alphanomics. They're willing to put skin in the game. They are by investing already and setting up infrastructure and companies. So they are the people that you probably trust the most to supply the products that your business outputs. The problem that Gareth has is, I will use Netflix in this particular one because we know Netflix aren't going to come to you and say, "Hey, we've got the next season of whatever series my wife happens to be streaming that is about to come out. Go and send all the latest episodes out to your miners on your network." We're pretty sure they won't look at them. And then even if you split it up frame by frame or only send them small amounts or jumble it around, that's just not the way an enterprise is going to work. And more importantly, when you work in video production and editing, you have to sign NDAs. You have to be trusted and trustable because this is companies' livelihood and bread and butter that they're sending out, regardless of whether you care about who killed who on the latest Nigerian soap opera. There are people out there that do, and there are people that will pay for this information. You don't need to explain this. And I realized that there will always be a side of this business that doesn't operate natively on the subnet, doesn't lend itself to operating the way the subnets work. Now, this is Bittensor. Nothing is closed. Nothing is written in stone. And I think the evolution of video at the moment is one of those subnets that is really, really quick thinking to change how we do things. So, I mean, Gareth has said, "Oh, this is not going through the subnet." But at the same time, we're exploring ways to do this with the private computing offered by Basilica, also by Targon, potentially by Shoots. We are looking at ways to do this within Bittensor. And also the storage with them in Hippius. But if we could do this in Bittensor, we will. That is obviously the goal. But at the same time, being able to offer these services to clients in a trusted way. So what we went for, or what the idea was, look, if a miner can prove themselves continually in the consumer arena, which really offers itself as through both synthetic and now organic queries, the place to really show what you can do, why should we not also allow private deals with them, which we'll speak about how that benefits the alpha in a minute, but allow us to essentially provide business-to-business services. And this isn't the only subnet doing this. There are other subnets that I advised on or am close with who have also identified that in order that the subnet makes up a part of your business infrastructure, a key part, because it enables you to do things that you can't do, you couldn't do if you weren't doing it within this distributed incentivized layer. But at the same time, not every single element of every business lives and dies within a subnet. And I think this is something that's important for people to understand when they look at really building businesses that utilize Bittensor rather than just ideas that function as a subnet. Back to you, Aaron.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah. And just to say, we need the subnet for the innovation. Like we couldn't be so agile and have such an amazing product if we didn't have the subnet behind us. So it's definitely the engine room of what we're doing, but we're just being practical. And as a business, we're just looking at ways of where we can, challenge in the market. So who qualifies? I think Mog just touched upon this just now, but it's the best miners, the best of the best. So we've got the leaderboard here, so we know who they are. We're in contact with all of the best miners on the subnet, and they don't have to do this. It's certainly a voluntary thing. They only do it if they want to. We would approach them when we had like a new enterprise job coming in. We discuss the scope of the job, what the requirements are, because they're always going to be different. And then we'd strike up a contract for that particular job. And if the mining team weren't keen on that, then we'd move on to the next one. So it's totally voluntary thing, and we're only using the best of the miners on the subnet.
Go on.
Yeah.
You wanted me to take over this one, but do you want to have it?
No.
Because I was going to go back to the previous one actually, because we purposely on the previous slide didn't put these are the exact scoring metrics that we're going to use. Once again, this needs to be fluid and adaptive. We want to create the healthiest product. So just to say, oh, well, we're going to use the miners who do X or Y or Z, and that's set in stone, would be slightly restrictive. We need to be adaptive to how the miners are performing and the types of jobs that are coming in. In an ideal world, we would just want jobs. We want clients, but we might have a mass upscaling client come in and then look at, is this about speed? Is this about ability to process? Is this about those who are already docs to us and are willing to, sign and move forward quickly, and who we can work with? So we're fluid in the mechanisms that we're using, but these leaderboards will all be on video and they will be clear and transparent. And I think it's important that whilst the mining teams don't have to dox themselves on our site, and I wouldn't encourage it, it's not in the spirit of Bittensor to say that, you must dox yourself in order to receive incentive. It's not. But I also think it's important for people to realize how much work is being given to these teams, even if they're just represented by a cold key within the video side, off the network, and make sure that that's fully transparent. So we go on to the next slide, which I ummed and ahed about because, and Gareth was like, can we talk about this? Can we get some more information on this? What do you think? Is this right? Is this wrong? And I said, we can't fix to this. So we should have put in that little approximate squiggle before every single number on here, because I feel so much of this can be changed and will be changed. The crux of it at the moment is that enterprise clients pay in fiat. Now, there are many reasons for this. Obviously, from the client's point of view, they don't need to know anything about go and buy Tau or Alpha Token to pay for a job. Now, that's not going to go down very well with a security company or a video production company in Africa. It's just a roadblock. And especially as most of this is done with, please raise an invoice to our finance department with a purchase order. We've all been through traditional business backgrounds. You can't say, well, if you want to pay in crypto, it's not going anywhere. So everyone's paying in fiat. And one of the goals that we have is to reduce the requirement to sell of the alpha, and of course add value back. But looking at that payment itself, you have a large proportion of that fiat payment, i.e. the work for the contract, that goes to the miner. We can call it 75%. I probably would have replaced this with a large proportion, but then I realized I was using different descriptive words for a slightly smaller proportion of that large proportion, to say 25%. So a large proportion goes to the mining contractor, the person doing the work, of which a small amount of that covers their infrastructure costs. So they are making a profit. They are running a company. They are running a company with fiat revenue that doesn't involve them selling alpha. There is no alpha that had to be sold in order to facilitate this. They're just running. So it's not like the more we ask them to do with these big jobs, because this will scale quickly. And then, of course, video is also a company and will take a percentage of the jobs being done. And then video can decide what covers their operational costs. Now, people say, hold on a minute, covering your operational costs, you cover that as a subnet. Yes, we do. Video has been one of one of the few subnets that openly and admittedly sells the funds they need to pay the staff and the setup and the infrastructure and their costs every week. You can follow it by following the owner wallet, and hands up says, yeah, that's what it costs. I mean, we've gone one short of literally outlining everybody's salaries. I don't think that's very fair. But you can see what we sell, and removing that, and that was quite hard. There was a point where we got to almost a breaking point when we were at something like 0.4, 0.5%, where we got over what was a comfortable kind of 50%, where we were selling more than 50%. And investors were reaching out to me privately saying, hey guys, you guys are selling quite a lot. We're like, well, we're selling the same that we were, but the price is going down. It's difficult. Removing that sell pressure from the owner wallet, first objective. Company makes enough money that we don't have to sell any more alpha anymore. Done. We've removed a nice amount of sell pressure. Then using that for buybacks, my view on this. Which would be more beneficial, a buyback or investing in developing a native plugin for Final Cut and Premiere to allow people to use video within the most popular apps? I'll be sending it off to a developer to go and do that.
Yeah.
And I refuse to be caught into promises of we send everything back to buyback, we send everything to buyer. I know it's not always popular amongst the decentralized Bittensor community, but I want to prove what it takes to run a proper business in this sense. But at this point, you're saying, well, hold on a minute, how does any of this relate to alpha then? Has it got anything to do with alpha? And this is where alpha bond comes into play. Alpha bond is basically saying to these miners, look, here's a 10K job. This job has a 10K contract for this month, 10K worth of work. You want to do it? Not a problem. Lock up 5K of alpha. We have discussed this, whether it's a period of the job, whether it has a small extension on it. You're essentially saying, and it's essentially collateral. There is always a possibility that someone could do a runner with the footage, break the NDA, do something. I mean, it's quite interesting. It doesn't work in a freelance world, does it? Can you imagine that? Come and build my website. I'm going to pay you 5K for it. But if you want to build it, you've got to lock up 2.5K first. It doesn't really work that way. It works the other way. You pay me a deposit as a customer, and I still could fluff you over, and you're left without a website chasing a developer that you paid half of the funds to. So we are going to make the miners lock up. Now, the miners have this alpha already. It also means that miners scale into enterprise jobs. No one walks through the door and goes, I'll have that 100K job that you've got. No, you won't, because you can't afford to take that risk unless you really have so much faith in yourself and how you've earned your position that you're willing to buy alpha on the open market in order to lock it up. But it does create a position of trust, because we are providing real world revenue, and we're in turn increasing the value of the asset that we're asking them to lock up. The lockup will be native smart contracts on Substrate, which the Taostats team have now finished and is in final review by OTF. Saying that here just so it pushes, expedites the review a little bit, but it is coming. It will come. It is coming. So much relies on it at the moment, and video is another subnet that will really benefit from being able to have open, transparent lockup. So it's not send us your funds and we will send them back. It is send us your funds, and when the job is complete and the client accepts that it's complete and it's passes the quality control, like in any fund release system, your funds are released back to you. So that is what we're looking at. All of these values are changeable. We will listen to feedback from customers, from suppliers. But this is how we wish to scale the demand for alpha, or essentially the utility for alpha. And what we're hoping to do here is that good miners shouldn't be, they're incentivized not to sell any of their alpha at all, because they need that alpha. They shouldn't be paying for the infrastructure that they're using to gain that alpha. Don't sell any of it, because the more alpha they have, the more alpha they can use to compete for real world jobs. And all we have to do to make that a reality is supply those real world jobs. So a lot of this obviously is inherently reliant on us being able to supply customers, business to business customers. They are where the bread and butter is. So the consumer side is very nice. And it would be great if we can build it into an 8.3 million a year revenue generating business. But the enterprise side is really what drives revenue to the providers, as and the vendors and the miners, and also to the business itself. Must have questions at this point.
Yeah, we've got questions. Don't worry about that. I want to clarify some stuff on this last slide first, because I think I must have missed something or misunderstood. So I just want to clear it up. So your enterprise clients are paying in fiat. 75% of that fiat payment is going to the mining contractor. Is that going in fiat or in alpha?
Fiat.
Okay. So
If we send them alpha, we could, I mean, it's something you could look at, but I looked at it this way. You would be, if they let, I mean, we could give them the option. To be honest, if they wanted it in alpha, we could purchase the alpha and send it to them. But at some point, they're going to pay their staff. So we're essentially, it could be looked at. But the initial plan is fiat.
Yeah, I wasn't asking you to change it. All I want is the clarity in my head, so I understand what we've got on the table here. So we're paying them in fiat. Now, I like that. 25% of that fiat payment is retained, and some of that is going to be used to cover the operational expenses, and some of it could be used for buybacks. The miner time lock of 50% of the fiat payment for agreed duration. So that's going to be half of the money that they're going to get paid. You're going to hold on to because there's an NDA in place. You want to make sure everything's done smoothly, and then you're going to release that.
No, what we're going to do is let's assume it's a job where for math's sake, 12,500. Sorry, I'm going to mess myself on the maths. A 10 grand job. So you as a miner are being paid 7.5. We need you, as you're going to get 7.5, to lock up half of 7.5. So 3,750. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So, and you will get that back when you get paid. So you'll get paid your fee, and will also release your alpha.
Release what alpha?
The alpha that you've had to lock up. So let's explain it in a real world view. You want to come and clean my windows, and and you quote me. It's going to cost 100 quid for you to clean my windows. That's fine. I'm going to pay you 100 quid to clean my windows. No problem. But before I let you start, you've got to give me 50 quid. Put 50 quid on the table to make sure you don't break any windows, run off, not do the job. Once you've cleaned my windows and I come around and inspect them, I pay you 100 quid that you got for cleaning the windows, and I also give you a 50 quid back.
Okay.
Your 50 quid was locked alpha though, and your 100 quid is that's dollars or pounds or fiat to anyone not on the UK.
Okay, so the 50% that the miner pays really as a deposit for the job, they pay in fiat, and you
that's in alpha. They have to lock it up in alpha. It's 50% of the fiat payment, but it's in alpha. They lock up in alpha. We're not asking them to put any fiat on the table.
I think we need some stickman explanations here.
Okay.
So, and I think I know where Mark's coming with this. So we have the client over here. Let's just say, yeah, it's an enterprise client. Okay. They come to video because they've got a bunch of videos, and let's just say this job, for easy maths, is $1,000 job. You then obviously send the videos to your elite miners. They do all the hard work, and then you have the happy client. Technically, this arrow should go all the way back there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what video does. So now let's get into the alphanomics. Of that $1,000, you're saying that you have wait, let's just do this. So you have elite miner over here. They have already stumped up 50% of that. So they're going to be $750.
Correct.
They've already stumped up 325 in alpha to even be eligible to get that
Correct.
that jobby. And then, but then that, and what is the time lock for that alpha again?
Debatable. I think it should be released once they've completed the job. Sometimes you might find you pay someone and there's a 2-week Well, we have discussed initially. There was something discussed with a 3-month lock. I thought it was too long. As far as I'm concerned, once they've completed the job. But this is something we'll discuss with them as well as what they think is fair, and also depending on how the relationship works with the client. What you might find with some of them is, although there's a monthly fee, it's actually a rolling contract. This is something that Gareth explained that the way the industry works. It's not just I come along, I need something done, and that's it. It's a rolling contract. So you might say, hey, if you want to qualify for the next month, we need to roll it on until the end of the next job. So you've always got 1 month behind.
Okay, so that's good. So that helps, drive value towards alpha a bit. But really, the alpha value driver part is what you do with this 250, I guess.
But yes and no. Also the alpha value driver part is the fact that the miners need to hold on to their alpha and not sell within a subnet in order to get access to those jobs. And if we arrive at a point in time, because miners are always going to sell, but if we arrive at a point in time where business to business enterprise contracts really start to grow significantly in value, outweighing what the subnet is potentially generating, then you may have the situation where miners actually need to accumulate alpha on the open market in order to qualify for a job.
Yeah. So so that alpha buy pressure and the lockup could actually end up being more than just full total sell side of the here, providing your enterprise revenue starts rocketing. So I'm a bit hazy on what happens with this 250 again. So with the remaining 25%, where does that go?
This is the video revenue. In its first objective that Gareth and I would like very much is that it covers video staff salaries and infrastructure costs.
Okay, so you've got OpenX, which we don't know what the percentage is, but okay. And then once that's covered with the remainder, or the remaining, does that go? Where does the remaining go?
We can look at buybacks, we can look at product development, we can look at marketing costs to gain into more markets, trade share, anything. It is essentially at this point at the discretion of video as to where that goes to grow.
Got it. Okay, so really the alpha value driver is getting video revenue high enough so that the miners that have to do the alpha lock is literally negating all sell side.
Oh, and having potentially a rolling minor lock that equals or is greater than the alpha emissions into a subnet.
Yeah, and because they're being paid in fiat, the chunk of fiat which is not locked up, that's enough to cover their costs, so they don't have a personal pressure to dump.
No, correct.
Amazing, I love it. Yep. Got it, Mark. I've sort of jumped on top of your questions there. Please continue. Sorry.
No, I mean I understand it now.
Thank you. Sorry. We'll send that to the designers. Take a screenshot of that guy. Just send up the design and say you should have.
So it's easy.
Yeah, so I get that now. So we've had a couple of questions in there. One of those questions: if miners are sent fiat, would that not dox the miner?
The miners for the Elite track are already doxed. That's the whole point of the Elite track is they will have to likely sign NDAs with these production companies and clients because that's the way that market works. They're not sending their footage. So we are building personal relationships, but they are only doxed to video. They're not doxed on the website. They're not doxed anywhere live. That's still a private business relationship. And we take the privacy of our miners very, very important, highly.
And another one from Miguel is, so I know Miguel. Hey Migs. Are the files uploaded private or does video store and use them for test and learning?
The consumer files. I assume he's meaning on the website, right?
No, so that nuts video that you uploaded for comparison, let's say that was my nuts video. Do you then store that?
We store it for a certain amount of time and then we delete it. So you can have it stored in your client area on the website, but we don't use it. We don't use testing or learning.
As Hippius moves to encrypted data for both public and private buckets, it will, in its very nature, be encrypted. But the miners have to decode the frames, and although they are, correct me if I'm wrong, split there's a certain amount.
Yeah,
and
there
there's
is.
Yeah, so they can see frames. Miners can see frames. We did look, and we are still looking at ways of encrypting the actual frames. But the problem is because it uses a what's the word? Perceptive quality. With the AI compression tools, by scrambling the frames, you actually ruin the perceptive quality because you can't perceive the quality because you can't make up what the frame is. But it is something that the research team within video are also still looking at, and also running within TE, the trusted encryption environments, which Targon and Basilica are working on. So in which case, the miners then wouldn't be able to see the jobs that they're working on.
Yeah. And what about the metadata? Futile Turtle who asked.
Yeah, same answer is we don't keep any of that data.
Right.
We purge it all. Yeah.
I had a random thought, which is a bit off topic. I met with a very interesting young guy who owned a huge porn industry. And he was obviously, I was fascinated with all sorts of questions, but he said that the margins are terrible. He has huge amounts of video that he has to store. He pays a fortune for that. And that really is about shaving the cents, for margins. If one of those companies came to you, what is your stance on that? Were you just yes, no, like?
I mean, I think we're open to a conversation. It's totally legal. Everything he's doing.
Yeah.
Then we can talk about it. It's we have to be careful working with video, working with public people uploading videos. We don't want to be doing. We need to make sure that we have checks in place. But if things are legal and above board, then I'm totally open to the conversation.
I think it's always been a thing in BitTens, hasn't it? For anything public, you can have instant Siam filters on there, and you would rather that they are more aggressive and restrictive. But for private enterprise clients, the video is being delivered over monitorable channels, and the client is identified. If a client is putting something illegal up there, well, they wouldn't do that. They're already in a business contractual arrangement with you, and of course, we would go to the police rather than overlooking that. But porn has always been a touchy subject in Bittensor. I wouldn't want to be running a porn subnet personally. I think it will happen eventually. But let's just say erotic video as a product, Hippius would store it. I believe video would process it, especially if there's a large enough contract. It's data at the end of the day.
Well, sorry, Mark, I just stepped all over your original questioning. So
You can also upscale all your old VHS porn if you want. That's really where you are. I've got a friend, and he's got a large library of VHS porn from when he was younger.
Yeah, I know. I think this is another example of when people have put some real thought into explaining what they do, and for once, I understand it all. So that's really nice. So, but fundamentally, there are two things that you do. There's the upscaling and the compression, which isn't to say that somebody wouldn't want both. In some cases, they may want something upscaled and then compressed, so they're going to make use of both sides of that coin. And then you've got three different marketplaces, really. You've got your consumer market that would come through the video studio. You've got the enterprise market that would access it through API. And then you've got this additional enterprise track where you fluidly invite your best miners to volunteer, to sign the NDAs and work on specific projects with those enterprise clients. So you can cover everything from one person that wants to upscale an old squirrel video to somebody that's got a huge library that doesn't want to get anybody else's eyeballs on it, and the NDAs are really, really important. You're dealing in fiat because that's the right place to be, but then you've tied in how that fiat revenue and how the profit can be used to support the alpha. You are flexible in terms of whether the miners are dealing with alpha or with fiat, depending on what they're looking for. I can see how it all ties together really nicely. It's a big market. I know we're not going to bang on about the total addressable market, but I think we all know, and your slide was 85% of the internet content was video. But the truth of it is that it's the two examples that you pulled up for Video Studio and the enterprise API access that were slightly more accessible and realistic targets at like $8 and $10 million a year. So, a realistic target for you guys, $1 to $2 million a month in would be a good place to start.
Would be very happy with that with the current offering. What we should also point out is this is all none of these are future promises. These are working right now. But even in the online studio, you'll notice there was a streaming section coming soon. We are not stopping. We're not stopping at upscaling compression, kicking our feet up and going into full sale mode. We are going into full sale mode, but the development and research team are still building out other video elements to the subnet, other things that the subnet can do, and also other things that the company can do. I don't like to promise things before they're out. They did say streaming there. I don't know if Gareth wants to touch on the streaming side. We've had
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like as you say, there's so much synergy. Like it's not just upscaling, it's not just compression. We've been looking at streaming. I think is really important. I think to be able to host now, we've got Hippius, so I think we're a much closer step there to being able to have a fully decentralized streaming platform run on Bittensor. It can happen. We've got the technology for the video, we've got the infrastructure there with Hippius, so that's something we're looking at. But also we're looking at within upscaling, colorization of old black and white footage. We can use Gen AI working alongside upscaling to do some amazing stuff these days. So the team are constantly looking at new ways to innovate. So we're definitely not sitting on our laurels there.
Yeah, he dropped it. So I'll put a little bit more on that. A streaming platform, essentially, Mark, to explain to the users. Let's say I come along and I want to be able to serve video from my platform. Normally within streaming, you need maybe 3 to 5 different copies at different sizes that your video player software will switch between very, very quickly. And they have to be hosted somewhere. So you could upload essentially a video to Hippius streaming platform. It would automatically compress it into 5 or 6 or however many different versions, whatever different codecs you needed, and then it would automatically store it on Hippius and then provide you all of the links you need to incorporate into your website, software, app, whatever it is that allows it to stream effectively and switch between those versions and deliver. So it's basically a content delivery platform that enables you to support streaming. Of course, if you use YouTube, that they do that in the background. You don't have to do it. I often argue with Gareth, we put content creators on there. My content creators don't do any of this stuff. They just upload it to YouTube and YouTube takes everything. But there are companies and people and enterprises serving video where they are doing.
Well, people don't want to use YouTube as well. That's the thing. If you want to use a decentralized platform, you don't want to play into the hand of big tech for whatever reason. Then you don't want to use the already existing technology out there. You need something decentralized. If you really want to trust what people are doing with your data, then they should come to us.
Not all data you want in the public realm on YouTube. And then the other one, which I didn't think you were going to drop, but you have dropped the alpha there, colorization. The research team have already been experimenting with some colorization models. So uploading black and white footage and have it done colored automatically by AI. And then also we'll touch very, very, very lightly on it, video generation, essentially, whether it's filling in missing parts on existing video or actually generating video.
So we're using Restream at the moment for this live stream, and it's being put out to all sorts of different for social media thingies. How long until video has its own Restream equivalent then? Or would you just be the back end for Restream?
We would be the back end.
Yep.
So Restream would be a client and they would be dynamically firing this off down the enterprise track, and they would be receiving back 5 sets of URLs, etc. And that's what they supply to the various streaming companies. Or no, that's what they probably embed into their player, and then they would then provide their player embed code, or they provide the final product, but their product accesses those various different streams.
Cool.
Right. On the branding side of things, you've got the two really, really clear cut sides of this coin: consumer and enterprise. Consumer through Studio, enterprise through API access, and then the enterprise track is also just enterprise.
Yeah, the enterprise track is just the wording for how the miners the enterprise track is work flowing off the subnet, but it would flow through an API. So they're not three different things. There's the consumer, which runs through the subnet directly to the miners, and then you have the enterprise track, which allows miners to qualify for enterprise jobs, and it's those enterprise jobs that would flow through the enterprise API.
Cool.
Got it. Okay. Go on.
And then are you first? Sorry, Mark. Yeah.
Roughly right now, what percentage of your efforts are going into kind of ongoing dev versus sales and marketing?
So, I mean, I would say we've just had some big changes in the team, so we've been doing a lot of development changes. That's why we had a little bit of delay getting the compression live. So, I mean, my personal efforts, I would say probably 50% plus is on new business. We've got a full-time sales guy. We're working with agents in different markets and different regions, so we can have like we've spoken a lot about Africa, so we've got a guy in Kenya who's big, like has a good contacts in the tech industry there, and then someone in Nigeria with the same. So we're looking at agents in different territories, but also in different sectors. So yeah, we're really pushing hard now on the direct sales rather than marketing, because I really feel that we're going to win more clients by talking directly to people rather than big marketing campaigns. But what we need to do is get some clients behind our belt, get some case studies going, so we can have provable, jobs that we've done, and then we can take them to the markets. Next year, I'll be going to a lot of industry conferences, all of the big TV ones, and then we're probably now looking at security and medical as well. So yeah, it's going to be a very busy year on the marketing front.
And on margins, like just can you give me an indication of how much it costs to process something like that squirrel video? Like what's
Yeah,
that?
I mean that's minimal, very minimal for the squirrel video. If we're looking at the jobs that come from through the consumer website, our costs are low. It's not big. But when we're looking at thousands of hours, hundreds of thousands of hours, video is very heavy, and that, the infrastructure costs are big. So say you're looking at 25% probably of the job cost will be infrastructure. Say we got 100,000 job, 250 grand of that would be on infrastructure. So it's quite expensive.
You took it out from the slideshow, but we did at some point have a consumer price in there per minute, and I can't remember if it was was it 5 pence or 0.5 pence?
0.05.
Oh,
Zero
geez.
point
Yeah.
$0.05 or cents.
Uh,
Zero.
$0.05.
Yeah, so 5 cents. That's close. That was 5 cents.
5 cents a minute. 5 cents a minute. So if I upload an old video, that's going to cost, if it's 10 minutes, it's going to cost me 50 cents to upload that.
Yeah.
And get that upscaled.
Yeah. And then sent back and down.
And what's your margin on my 50 cents?
So we're probably 75% on that.
Oh, wow. It's good margin, isn't it?
Also, because we're building on Bittensor, then obviously our infrastructure costs are very different from we would if we were an AI video company with 256 research. It's essentially what our miners are, which are helping us move our product on. So, we can come in quite low as opposed to our competitors.
But this is also, I mean, the thing I've been banging on about since even pre-detail is, Bittensor is essentially an accelerator to enable business startups to really push forward within this space. But it encourages you to work for incentive as subnet owners as well, and based as emissions which fund you. But it's foolish to be complacent and think that those emissions are going to power your business. But it's a very thin line to walk between, especially as you're a growing subnet with growing interest and those emissions start to increase. And your miners, of course, then become very not reliant, but they become very used to those emissions. But you still, in the back of your mind, have to build for a world where there's 1,000 subnets competing for these emissions, 2 halvenings down the line, and your business needs to still understand and make use of the incentive element of it, but not be 100% reliant on it. So there still needs to be. This is why, I mean, other subnets are doing it. Liam is doing it with their the cost of the GPUs and directly translatable to the miner profits. Generating your own profits on and outside the subnet, and then allowing those to trickle down to your miners is crucial. So we're keeping.
Based on what you just said, I think it's probably apt that we share Vito's question. Vito said, I always ask the same question on Revenue Search. I'm interested in subnet owners' views on the halving. How do they think it will impact the subnets?
Hey, this on Gareth. View, yeah, a lot of people's view on the hardening is fear, and I think that was just based around a lot of misunderstanding or looking at certain elements, especially the lack of correlation between the Bittensor halvening and the alpha halvening. The way I can just simplify it, which I've had it simplified by a couple of people who really understand it, is that obviously less tau is injected into the subnet pools, which essentially takes you a little bit further back in time along subnet life to slightly less liquidity being injected in, which essentially makes subnets slightly more volatile for the immediate future, but then obviously they balance themselves out very, very quickly, which means that subnets with positive price action will see increased positive price action through purchases, but those with the opposite, with more positive sell action or negative price action, will see prices again affected by greater multiples. So if you're doing good things, this has always been the way, I said to so many people in Bittensor throughout the years, whether it was Finny, whether it was Subnet, if you're building good things, just concentrate on that and everything will be okay. If you sit there just concentrating on the price of your alpha and then how you're going to artificially or increase that. And as investors, I think there's some of subnets coming down to one has caused a very nice effect. People have now realized and seen for themselves how the root cell pressure is alleviated the moment a subnet drops below one, and that helps to balance prices. None of this is investment advice or financial advice, but I feel that subnets themselves have reached a comfortable, I don't want to use the word bottom because that will be but a natural, they've realized that there is a cushion underneath, part of the mechanism that doesn't just allow subnets to go down below their emissions. They thought about this. I know it's not always well explained, and then there's a lot of talk in all the very different channels, but in our leaders we trust, and they didn't just design the thing on a paper napkin and throw it out into the wild.
Yeah. So going back to video, I just tried uploading a little video. It's 5-minute max. When will that cap be lifted?
When we can charge you.
Yeah.
Probably within 2 weeks. We're just debugging, making sure that there's no problems in the system, because I don't want to be charging for something that I'm not 100% sure that it's robust. So we feel that we're there. We just want to make sure that we can stress test it, and then we can start uploading videos of any length, as long as you pay for it.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I do like a 2-hour live session like every week, and then it takes forever to Zoom to process it, and then we have to upload it elsewhere, and it just takes forever. So if we press that.
All right, yeah, perfect. Yeah.
And then for the consumers, will there be a size limit to the file that we can compress?
Yeah, so we're going to have a tiered system depending on we'll have a pay-as-you-go system, and then we'll have a monthly subscription. We'll probably do a free, very small file system where you can test it out with a watermark, so you can just to see that the technology works before you want to pay.
Yes.
So depending on which tier you're in, you'll have different functionalities and lengths you're able to do.
Because these are 10 gigabyte file sizes. So
Yeah, the reality is once you get onto a large tier and you're processing files like that, you're probably not going to sit there uploading it in your browser. You're going to want a more secure way of dropping that file.
Cool. Yeah. Right. And then one last question before Mark has his last questions, I guess. Miggs has asked, can one miner have a monopoly over all the deals if they are shit hot?
I'm going to answer this one because this is always seen as negative. And yet I've watched this happen on subnets. And we've watched this happen. I'll draw a parallel back to can one AI company have a monopoly over inference? Now, no. You look at the centralized players. Some people have got Grok on their phone. Some are using GPT. Some are using Perplexity. Everyone's using Claude, a little bit of something. So at the moment, which is better? Oh, I don't know. But let's go back to end of 2022. There was only one. There was GPT. Everyone was just GPT, and everyone else had to play catch up. Now, the same thing happened in Subnet 19. There was a period where one miner just owned it. And everyone was sort of going in the forums saying, "Oh, this is unfair. This one miner is doing so much better." And Namare, bless him, sat back and said, "Well, it's because he's doing a better job than all of you. You've got to catch up." And it took maybe 3 weeks, and they'd caught up. I don't think BitTensor miners sit there and go, "I can possibly have done better." Yeah, some might say, "Well, I give up. I can't do it any better." But once you see the incentives that are being gained by these miners, and very interestingly, because there is a split between emissions between the jobs, there is actually a natural equilibrium of how many machines you're prepared to deploy to perform a job. So it's a 60-40 split, I believe, between upscaling and compression at the moment. It's a variable split. And what happens is that if you are running, let's say you are gaining all of the, you're dominating at upscaling, as one team was for quite some time. They weren't running 40% of the UIDs. There was just no point. I think they ended up running about 25% of the UIDs because they said there's no point in us doing it. No one's really competing with us. We've got the top set of that. It's not cost effective for us to spin up more machines at the moment. So what happened is it actually made the incentive. This is a very BitTensor thing. It made the distribution chart look a bit wonky, and I was having to guys go, why is there this set of miners all the way up at the top who are receiving disproportionately more incentive? Well, the reality is because that 25% of miners was receiving 40% of the incentive because they weren't being challenged. And it basically said, and I had this conversation with a few people, and they may explain to me, say, yes, what if that's an open invitation to anyone to go and compete with them? Because it says these guys are literally doing so well, they're putting their hands behind their back and saying, we don't need to do anything else because we're doing exactly what the subnet needs. We're receiving the emissions for it. And we're so good at it. We're not even fighting amongst our, we're not even owning all of the amount of bandwidth that we need in order to really secure this because no one's coming to fight for us. And so, I mean, it's a very minor understood problem as to, if you start mining on a subnet and you, let's say no one else is competing, you only need one key. The moment someone else launches 2 keys, you need 4, 5, you need more. And you think, oh, well, I'm not going to do too many because it's hard to manage and it's costing me more for the GPU. But the more people that come in to compete, the more you want to expand to stay ahead of them until the subnet is full. And then you're suddenly competing against each other and the bottom ones are being, and then it becomes more and more competitive.
But also, I just want to add that for like the enterprise clients, like there's no room for error here. They need to be the best of the best. So if one miner is taking a monopoly and proving their worth over other miners, then maybe we will use them over and over again because, that one mistake and then, that could be very bad for us. So it's really, really important that we have the best of the best and we totally trust them. So, yeah.
From a subnet point of view, we prefer competing miners because they're pushing each other. That there is a benefit in that. I don't think we would sit there forever with one mining team and go, well, we've got a subnet, it pays our one mining team and this and that. And we haven't had that situation. We had it, as I said, in the upscaling alone for a short period of time. But it's not happening that way. They are competing, and we are in contact with multiple teams. So.
Yeah, I guess that's the risk to all your eggs in one basket. If something happens to that mining team, then your product drops off.
But it's also an evolving product. These are AI-driven models, compression models, and AI is not standing still. So these models are constantly being trained and improved on. And so, it doesn't stand still. The metrics and the benchmarks keep improving.
Well, this is amazing. Like, like most detail investors, you probably think, oh, what would the ideal top 10 subnets be? And Hippius and Vidaio are always in my top 10, and they should be there forever. I mean, like you said at the beginning, 85% of all internet traffic is video. I mean, you have oodles of room to grow.
Yeah.
Revenue's coming ASAP, basically. The alphanomics are great. I've got no bad negative vectors or things, which I always get scared, and then I go, everything ticks all my boxes, and that's when I get scared, because I'm like, what am I missing?
We can have a conversation later. I've got a list of things that I'll still want to intrude, that I'm not always happy about. But
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Mark.
No, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So this is the second time that each of you have been on. I think Gareth, you were one of our earliest guests on a nascent revenue search long time ago, when we were just trying to work out what we were doing, and one day we will work out what we're doing. But if there's a blueprint for knowing what you're doing, it's whenever Mog's on, because that's when I know I can sit back and relax, and I know there's going to be some slides, and someone's actually thought about what they're going to present, and I appreciate you both. Thank you. In terms of sitting back here, we're not sitting back, me and Siam. You know, we want to make revenue search as good as it can be, and as much of a magnet for this Bittensor ecosystem as it can be. And with that in mind, one question that we've been asking guests recently is, if you could think of one guest that we could invite on, or encourage on, or strong arm onto the show, one way or another, to try and bring some more eyeballs onto revenue search, and by extension into Bittensor, who would that guest be? Who should we be trying to get on to revenue search?
Well, I've got to stop myself interrupting. It is becoming a kind of a hallmark of me as interrupting. Apologies for that. I've always, since the very early days, cared much about building businesses. And so I think anyone that understands Bittensor, understands product. So if you look at someone within bought and sold the most amount of businesses and successfully, someone like Barry Silbert would be very, very useful from Yuma. JJ from Latent is someone who's very good at understanding value in businesses, in open source businesses. And then from outside Bittensor, anyone that's built functioning Web3 businesses and Web2 businesses that starts to understand the things that we're doing. And then and understands that value, and starts to see potential in some of these subnets.
Anyone in particular?
I'm good. Barry's always been say a lot of us look up to in terms of building successful businesses within this space.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. Barry Silbert is an obvious choice for sure.
And who else, Gareth, do you think would bring fresh eyeballs to Bittensor?
Well, I mean, it's a really difficult one, isn't it? Because you want people who are totally outside of the network, really, to come in. So maybe someone like Lex Friedman one day, you could get who.
Yeah,
and then
that would be, yes.
He'd be super interested, and obviously he has such an amazing reach. I think he would make an amazing guest.
Everyone's been trying to get Jake on Lex Friedman since day one. That would be the coup d'etat to get Lex on your show. I did think that, actually, yeah. But I thought that's the thing. I might be shooting a little bit for the moon, but impress us, guys.
I think that'd be interesting.
We could just, strong arm him and pay him for his time to come on.
I said, strong arm him. You'll be getting in a ring with him. So yeah,
he's gonna be JJ. Yeah. There's this comment made me tickle. Yeah.
Hey, look, I think competition breeds innovation. And sometimes it's fun to be in the school playground, but it's also good to leave the school playground and realize we all go to the same school, and we're all fighting for the same thing. So, don't take everything you read in written word on Twitter and Discord as a sign of What is also JJ versus Mog? Who is it? Someone wanted for the boxing match. Like, put the pacifist against the short guy, because it's not going to work out well. I'm not sure either of us are going to win, but it'll be quite funny.
Cool. Well, I think that that neatly ties a bow on this episode of Revenue Search. Gareth, Mog, thank you very, very much for joining us, sharing your time, expertise, and telling us everything we need to know about video. Very, very exciting indeed.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, folks. Cheerio.
Bye-bye.